The farmhouse sat alone at the edge of a long stretch of dry Texas land, surrounded by miles of empty fields and a broken wooden fence that hadn't been repaired in years. The nearest neighbor was at least a mile away, and at night, the silence was so deep it felt unnatural, like the world itself had stopped breathing. Ethan and Claire had bought the place just 3 weeks ago. It wasn't their first choice, but it was affordable, quiet, and far away from the chaos of the city. Ethan worked remotely, and Claire had always dreamed of living somewhere peaceful, somewhere open. The farmhouse, with its creaky floors and wide porch, felt like a fresh start. At least, that's what they thought. The first few nights were normal. They unpacked boxes, set up furniture, and tried to ignore the constant groaning of the old wood as the house settled. The wind would whistle through the cracks in the windows, and sometimes the barn door outside would slam softly in the distance. But that was expected. This was an old Texas farmhouse. Then, on the 4th night, something changed. Claire woke up around 2:17 a.m. She didn't know why at first. The room was dark, the air still. Ethan was asleep beside her, breathing steadily. But something felt off. Something she couldn't explain. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from downstairs. She froze, her eyes wide open in the darkness. At first, she thought maybe it was just the house. Old wood shifting, pipes knocking, but no. This was different. These were clear, distinct steps. One, then another, like someone was walking across the living room floor. Claire nudged Ethan. "Ethan, wake up." He groaned. "What is it? Do you hear that?" He stayed still for a moment, listening. "Nothing. I don't hear anything," he whispered, half asleep. Claire strained her ears. Silence. The footsteps had stopped. "Never mind," she said, trying to calm herself. "It's probably just the house." Ethan rolled over and fell back asleep within seconds. Claire stayed awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, her heart slowly settling. Eventually, she convinced herself it was nothing. But the next night, it happened again. This time, Ethan heard it too. It started around the same time. Just after 2 a.m. The same slow, measured steps moving across the floor below them. Ethan sat up immediately. "Okay, that's not the house." Claire clutched his arm. "You hear it, right?" "Yeah." They both listened. Step. Pause. Step. It sounded like someone walking barefoot on wood. Ethan quietly got out of bed. "What are you doing?" Claire whispered, panic rising in her voice. "I'm going to check." "No, don't." But he was already moving toward the bedroom door. He opened it slowly, careful not to make a sound. The hallway outside was pitch black. The only light came from the faint glow of the moon through a distant window. The footsteps had stopped again. Ethan grabbed a flashlight from a drawer and made his way to the staircase. Claire followed closely behind him, her breathing shallow. Each step down the stairs creaked loudly under Ethan's weight. They reached the bottom. The living room was empty. The front door was locked. The windows were closed. Nothing seemed out of place. "See?" Ethan said, trying to sound confident. "Probably just." A sudden noise cut him off. A single, sharp step. Right behind them. They both spun around. No one was there. Claire gasped. "Ethan. I don't like this." He didn't respond. His face had gone pale. They went back upstairs without saying another word. That night, neither of them slept. The following day, Ethan checked every part of the house. The attic. The basement. The closets. The barn outside. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No broken locks. Everything was exactly as it should be. Maybe it's animals, Ethan suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Animals don't sound like that, Claire replied. Still, they tried to move on. But the footsteps kept coming. Every night. Always around the same time. Always slow. Always inside the house. Sometimes they would start in the living room. Other times, near the kitchen. Once, they even heard them on the stairs. But only halfway up, stopping suddenly as if whatever was walking had decided not to come any closer. Claire began to feel constantly uneasy. She avoided being alone in the house. Even during the day, she felt like she was being watched. One afternoon, while Ethan was outside fixing a section of the fence, Claire was in the kitchen making coffee. That's when she heard it. A single step. Right above her. She froze. The bedroom was directly upstairs. Ethan wasn't inside. And she was alone. Another step followed. Claire slowly backed away from the counter, her eyes locked on the ceiling. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. No response. The footsteps stopped. She ran outside immediately, finding Ethan and refusing to go back in until he checked the entire house again. But just like before, nothing. No one was there. That night, Ethan decided to set up cameras. He placed one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one facing the staircase. If someone, or something, was inside the house, they would catch it. They stayed up late, watching the live feed on Ethan's laptop. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. And then. The footsteps started. Clear as ever. Step. Step. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm. "It's happening." Ethan stared at the screen. The living room camera showed nothing. The kitchen camera, nothing. The staircase camera. Nothing. But the sound was undeniable. They could hear it echoing through the house. Step. Pause. Step. It sounded like it was moving in circles. "Check the footage," Claire whispered. Ethan rewound the video. They watched carefully. Nothing. No movement. No shadows. No signs of anyone. But the audio. The footsteps were there. Clear as day. Ethan leaned back, his face tense. "That's not possible." Claire shook her head slowly. "We need to leave." But Ethan wasn't ready to give up. There has to be an explanation. The next day, they went into town and spoke to a few locals. Most people shrugged it off. "Old houses make noise," they said. But one elderly man, who had lived in the area his entire life, reacted differently. When Ethan mentioned the farmhouse, the man's expression changed. "You're staying there?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "Why?" The man hesitated. "That place, it's been empty for a long time." "How long?" "Years. Maybe decades." Claire felt a chill run down her spine. "Why?" The man looked at them carefully before speaking. "There was a couple who lived there a long time ago. Husband and wife. Kept to themselves. People didn't see them much." "What happened to them?" Ethan asked. The man sighed. "One night, neighbors reported hearing strange noises. Footsteps, mostly. Going on all night. But no one checked on them." "Why not?" "Because out here, people mind their own business." He paused. A few days later, someone finally went to the house. And? The man's voice dropped. They found the husband downstairs. Dead. No signs of struggle. No injuries. Just, gone. Claire covered her mouth. "What about the wife?" she asked. "They never found her." Silence filled the air. After that, the man continued. People said they could still hear footsteps in that house. At night. Just walking around. Ethan and Claire exchanged a look. "You're saying," Ethan started. "I'm saying," the man interrupted, "you might want to find somewhere else to stay." That night, they packed their bags. Neither of them wanted to spend another night in the farmhouse. But as they loaded the car, something felt wrong. The air was heavier than usual. The silence deeper. Claire turned back toward the house. "Ethan, look." The front door was open. They both froze. "I locked that," Ethan said. Slowly, carefully, they walked back toward the house. The door creaked as Ethan pushed it open further. Inside, everything looked the same. Except for one thing. There were footprints on the floor. Bare footprints. Leading from the living room. Up the stairs. Claire's voice shook. "Ethan, those weren't there before." He nodded slowly. They followed the footprints with their eyes. Up the staircase. And then they stopped. Halfway up. Just like the footsteps always did. Ethan swallowed hard. "We're leaving. Now." They turned to go. But then. A sound. A single step. Right behind them. They froze. Another step followed. Closer. Claire's heart pounded in her chest. "Don't turn around," Ethan whispered. But she couldn't help it. Slowly, she looked over her shoulder. At first, she saw nothing. Then. A faint shape. Standing at the base of the stairs. Barely visible in the dim light. Watching them. Claire screamed. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the door. They ran outside. Not stopping until they were inside the car. As Ethan started the engine, Claire looked back at the house one last time. For a brief moment. She thought she saw someone standing in the upstairs window. Watching them leave. They never went back. The farmhouse was left exactly as it was. Months later, the property was listed for sale again. No one mentioned the footsteps. No one mentioned the missing woman. But sometimes, late at night, if you drive past that stretch of empty Texas land, you might hear something. Soft. Slow. Deliberate.